Well, there's probably no industry doing it tougher right now than tourism. For South Australian Tourism Commission, the coronavirus represents yet another devastating blow after a summer beset by bushfires. Brent Hill is the Executive Director of Marketing at the SA Tourism Commission, and he was quick off the mark after the bushfires in launching a new campaign encouraging visitors to get back to South Australia. He now faces an even tougher challenge of coronavirus, but is already planning how to get visitors back after the height of the virus threat has passed. I spoke with Brent Hill this week. Brent Hill, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, needless to say, this is a pretty extraordinary time on the back of the bushfires season in South Australia last year. Now you're dealing with the coronavirus fallout. Just take us through how tough it is at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's very difficult. You can't underestimate that. I think there's a number of businesses that we've seen in South Australia that are very much highly exposed to international travel, and those guys are probably suffering the most with coronavirus. But also there's just the general impact of a little bit of fear that's out there, so people are tending to avoid places with a lot of people as well. So unfortunately that is impacting on a number of our tourism operators, but of course in everything there is a silver lining. There are some of our businesses that are more remote that are all of a sudden actually quite attractive to people as well.
And is there a possibility, you think, for a boom in domestic tourism on the back of the coronavirus, in that people are limited in what they can travel, where they can travel internationally?
Yeah, I think so, and certainly hope so. From our perspective, what we're seeing is we're switching a lot of our spend from international, where you have travel restrictions and you can't actually travel anyway. So people are now looking to Australia, and we think in our case, a lot of people have been going, well, I've been hearing things about Adelaide and South Australia, maybe now is the time to come down and check it out. So I think in that sense, I think that domestic travel for now can actually help provide a bit of a buffer, and hopefully we don't have any further restrictions on travel domestically.
Now, of course, you did do a post-bushfires campaign. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but I'm interested, what are your latest discussions with authorities and your state counterparts? What is your kind of worst case scenario?
I think the worst case scenario would be if Australia completely shut its borders and the planes weren't able to fly. I mean, we've already seen restrictions with China, Korea, Iran, Italy, etc. And some of those are major destinations for us. China, for example, is the source of our number one inbound market. So from that perspective, that already is probably 30% down in terms of international travel. So the worst case scenario is if all the borders were completely closed, but obviously we're doing what we can to work with the markets that are still open.
Now, South Australian Tourism was one of the first to respond with its own post-bushfire campaign. This was particularly challenging as there were still bushfires going on around Australia. Talk to us a bit about that campaign and some of the challenges there.
Yeah, it was. It was incredibly difficult, and I think the first thing that we did was just spend a lot of time, with our tourism operators. They are really like family to us, and we wanted to talk to them about what they needed. So that's really where the campaign came from. It was very clear to me that we needed to let the operators speak because people wanted to help, and they wanted to be directed on how they could help. So from that perspective, when the tourism operator said, yes, we do want to see you, and it is part of our recovery, the beautiful thing was that amazing Australian spirit that we've now seen, that people have travelled to those destinations in really big numbers, which is fantastic.
How hard was it when people are actually feeling a bit guilty for travelling?
That's right, and that was incredibly difficult, and the main thing that we were grappling with was getting the tone right. And I think the really important thing was, again, as we said, it wasn't us as SA Tourism Commission or someone forcing people or trying to put words in people's mouths. It was actually tourism operators who were saying, hey, we're fighting the fires, we're out here doing what we can, but this is our livelihood. And they're really proud of their destination. Yeah. They want people to see what's still there. And so from that perspective, it just became a campaign that was around letting their voice do the talking. And I think people really resonated well with that and went, okay, great, I can go to these wine regions, I can see wildlife, I can explore the coast, and that's okay. And that's the thing that we've seen that's been really good.
Amidst the coronavirus, speaking of that possible growth later on, are you already planning some kind of post-corona campaign, or is that just seen as too difficult at the moment?
That's right. So yeah, really, right now, the interesting thing is, we've been working with our agency, TBWA, who've been amazing. We've probably had 3 different campaigns already with the coronavirus that we've had to change and adjust because the situation keeps escalating. So from that perspective, it is very important to get the tone right and first and foremost, make sure people are healthy and safe. So we're working through that. We've got an Easter campaign and school holidays campaign in place now, which is very simple.
And they're going ahead as planned? They're
going ahead as planned because obviously people can get to South Australia and travel, and we're seeing that in good numbers. And then, of course, as you say, we are thinking about recovery because that will come. And at that point, we are going to really need to stimulate those markets around the world.
And speaking of that stimulus, do you think stimulus for tourism should form part of that package of stimulus announced by the Prime Minister and Treasurer this week?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, tourism is such a big employer for Australia. It's very important. They employ a lot of people. And we've already seen that, there's a lot of people that have had to rationalise and bring their staff back to, just a core team. So that's really difficult to see. So, we want those guys to, be able to handle when that recovery comes and to recruit again in due course.
All right, let's talk a bit about the South Australian brand. What is unique, do you think, about South Australia and selling it as a tourist destination at the moment, and where are you seeing the most growth?
It is, yeah. I think for us, the food and wine scene, obviously everyone knew about our wine, but to have Australia's best restaurant a couple of years in a row, that has really sort of taken off. People are really loving that, boutique capital that's very easy to get around. I think from a tourist perspective, you want to be able to get to your destination quickly, to not have to fight in traffic and so on. And that's the beauty of Adelaide. You've got everything you need in the city, but it's very easy. To get to McLaren Vale was 45 minutes, the Barossa is 60 minutes, Adelaide Hills is 25 minutes, and also a spectacular coastline. So I think people are really starting to discover, hey, everything we want about, a chilled, relaxed holiday with a bit of adventure thrown in, actually South Australia offers that pretty easily, and it's a pretty cruisy holiday.
Brent Hill, you're doing a very good job in very difficult circumstances. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, I really appreciate it.